In 1957, Detroit was living in a dream of the future. Sweeping curves, tail fins, and spacecraft-inspired dashboards reflected America's belief that the space age was already here. And amid that fever, Mercury unveiled a car it believed would redefine modern motoring, the Turnpike Cruiser. Marketed as the symbol of tomorrow, it boasted advanced technology, daring design, and the promise of a driving experience years ahead of its time. It wasn't just a car. It was Mercury's declaration that it could stand proudly beside Cadillac and Chrysler. Yet behind the glittering chrome and futuristic glow lay a bittersweet irony. The Turnpike Cruiser didn't truly reach the future. It showed how far Mercury had drifted from reality, and that marked the beginning of one of the most unforgettable missteps in the brand's history. By the mid-1950s, America believed the future was right around the corner. Sputnik was about to launch, and people talked endlessly about rockets, robots, and the cities of the year 2000. Detroit got swept up in the same excitement, turning the automobile into a symbol of progress and innovation. GM rolled out its giant-finned Buicks, Chrysler showed off its sleek, forward look, and Ford became determined to lead the way into this new era. Within Ford, Mercury was chosen as the experimental brand, the playground for bold design and futuristic engineering. Engineers were encouraged to take risks, to create something that looked like tomorrow, even if it made little sense today. But in the midst of that frenzy, few realized that Detroit was drifting further from what drivers actually wanted. As automakers chased the magic of technology, they forgot that people simply wanted a car that was practical, reliable, and easy to live with. From the very first glance, the Mercury Turnpike Cruiser was breathtaking. Its body stretched over 18 feet long, nearly 7 feet wide, and just over 4.5 feet tall, gracefully sculpted with aerodynamic lines flowing along its sides. The wide, split-level grille mimicked the air intakes of a jet engine, while sweeping chrome strips ran from nose to tail like lightning streaks along a spaceship's hull. And at the rear, the softly curved, soaring tail fins became its boldest signature. They weren't just decoration, they symbolized an era when every American car carried the dream of flight. Combined with twin rocket-style taillights, the Turnpike Cruiser looked as if it could lift off the highway at any moment. The second highlight was the breezeway roof, with a rear window separated from the main roofline, floating like a jet canopy. This design not only modernized the car's profile, but gave the Turnpike Cruiser one of the most recognizable silhouettes of the entire 1950s. Even the emblems echoed the space-age vision. The Turnpike Cruiser script curved like a planetary orbit, accompanied by a silver starburst. Two-tone paint options, pale yellow with white, red with cream, or black with silver, made the car look like a visitor from another world. And when you step inside the Turnpike Cruiser's cabin, it feels as if you've entered another world. The entire dashboard was shaped like a spaceship's command console, stretching across the cabin in layered tiers and drenched in gleaming chrome. At its center sat a domed cluster of amber-lit gauges, refined yet futuristic, evoking the precision of a scientific instrument. Buttons and switches lined up in perfect symmetry, creating an orderly, high-tech aesthetic reminiscent of a spacecraft's control board. The thin two-spoke steering wheel, large in diameter and rimmed with polished metal, was delicately engraved with the Turnpike Cruiser name. Behind it, a mirrored speedometer reflected onto the roof glass, allowing drivers to read vital information without looking down, a concept deeply rooted in futuristic thinking. two-tone leather seats with starburst stitching, chrome-trimmed door panels, and a headliner molded with wave-like contours mimicking airflow. Every element served a single purpose: to make the driver feel like they were commanding a space machine, not just driving a sedan. And to complete that experience, Mercury gave the Turnpike Cruiser a heart worthy of it. The massive 368 cubic inch V8, borrowed directly from Lincoln's luxury lineup. This engine featured a 4-barrel carburetor, a 9.0:1 compression ratio, and produced 290 horsepower with over 400 pound-feet of torque. Astonishing figures for 1957. Paired with the 3-speed Merc-O-Matic automatic transmission, the car delivered acceleration that was smooth yet authoritative. Mercury captured that sensation with the slogan, "Power to command the turnpike, the power to rule the highway." Cruising at 70 miles per hour, the Turnpike Cruiser ran with a calm, deep rumble, as if a precision-built machine was working solely to please its driver. But such strength came with extravagance. Weighing nearly 4,400 pounds, the Turnpike Cruiser was a true gas guzzler, managing only 8 to 10 miles per gallon. Yet in the 1950s, when fuel was cheap and speed symbolized freedom, no one cared. If anything, that appetite for gasoline made the car feel even more majestic, like an unchallenged king of the highway. Interestingly, the 368 V8 wasn't originally designed for Mercury, but for the Lincoln Continental, a symbol of prestige and power. By borrowing that engine, Ford hoped to elevate Mercury as the perfect bridge between everyday Ford and the luxury of Lincoln. And what made the Turnpike Cruiser truly special was its arsenal of features never before seen on an American car. The automatic speed control system, an early form of cruise control, allowed the driver to maintain a constant speed with a simple lever. It sounded like something straight out of NASA, but in reality, it often made drivers sweat. The vacuum-operated system was slow to respond, sometimes holding or releasing throttle unpredictably, causing sudden bursts of acceleration on the highway. Mercury proudly introduced the futuristic monitor scope, a mirrored display that projected driving information onto the roof glass. It looked visionary in ads, but under bright sunlight, it was nearly useless. The reflection turned into a blinding halo instead of helpful data. The Turnpike Cruiser stood as proof of Detroit's fearless ambition. Engineers unafraid to experiment, yet still uncertain where comfort ended and excess began. Priced at over $4,000 in 1957, the Turnpike Cruiser cost as much as a Cadillac Series 62 and even exceeded some Lincoln models. It was a bold move, but also a dangerous one. Mercury had always been positioned as Ford's middle ground brand, aimed at buyers who wanted affordable luxury. But the Turnpike Cruiser climbed too high, too far beyond what Mercury's loyal customers could justify. Those who could afford it simply bought Cadillacs or Chrysler 300s, names that carried far greater prestige. Meanwhile, longtime Mercury owners looked at this futuristic machine with confusion. The warmth and familiarity that once defined the brand seemed to vanish behind chrome and gadgetry. What Mercury saw as engineering progress quickly became a burden for drivers. The three-piece curved windshield, once a design triumph, reflected sunlight so severely that it blinded drivers on bright days. The breezeway rear window, though futuristic in appearance, created a vacuum effect that pulled air uncomfortably through the cabin. The massive tail fins disturbed the car's balance at high speeds and the mirror-like chrome trim reflected sunlight so harshly that drivers often squinted just to check their mirrors. All those futuristic touches meant to impress, instead, made the Turnpike Cruiser unfriendly to its own owner. Period reviews were brutal. It feels less like a car and more like a laboratory on wheels. Fascinating, but exhausting. Sales soon told the same story. In 1957, Mercury sold only about 23,000 Turnpike Cruisers, less than one-fifth of total production. By 1958, the dazzling chrome curtain of Detroit began to crack. A nationwide recession sent car sales plummeting across America. Big, flashy, gas-hungry machines like the Turnpike Cruiser suddenly became burdens in the eyes of consumers. When money grew tight, few wanted to spend thousands of dollars on a car that even dealers admitted was too much for too little. Mercury tried to correct its course. The 1958 Turnpike Cruiser was redesigned with less chrome, a cleaner grille, and a bold new Big M emblem. But it was far too late. Buyers had lost interest, and the image of the car of the future now felt gaudy, distant, and outdated. Sales collapsed, with just over 6,000 units sold in 1958, a devastating figure for what was once meant to be Mercury's proud flagship. Even within Ford, executives began to view the Turnpike Cruiser as a symbol of the brand's misdirection, chasing Cadillac and Chrysler while forgetting its own soul. After just 2 short years, Mercury was forced to discontinue the Turnpike Cruiser. The name would never return, replaced by more sensible models like the Park Lane and the Monterey. Decades after its quiet demise, the Turnpike Cruiser has re-emerged, not as a mistake, but as a monument to an era that dared to dream big. To classic car enthusiasts, it represents more than a Mercury. It captures the very spirit of 1950s America, bold, glittering, and endlessly ambitious. Surviving examples are now prized at vintage car auctions, especially the 1957 convertible, with its sweeping curves and sunlight-drenched chrome that glows like liquid metal. Once criticized as complicated and excessive, those very traits now make the Turnpike Cruiser irresistible. It wasn't practical, but it told a story. The story of when Detroit believed the future could be molded from steel and imagination. Strangely, the farther we move from that time, the more the Turnpike Cruiser earns respect. Amid today's uniform, efficient, and predictable cars, this massive Mercury, with its breezeway roof and jet-age fins, feels refreshingly human. It is the beauty of honest failure. Today, a fully restored Turnpike Cruiser can fetch well over 6 figures, yet its true worth lies not in price, but in memory. Each time that 368 V8 engine rumbles to life, its deep, resonant sound evokes an age when people believed progress had no limits until they learned how costly dreams could be. The Turnpike Cruiser didn't save Mercury, but it achieved something far rarer. It became a witness to an America that dared to dream, dared to fail, and still looked back on its past with pride. If you've ever seen a Turnpike Cruiser in person, even once, you know why people still stop and stare. It's not perfect, but it's real, and that's what keeps it alive. Share your thoughts below. Do you think Detroit will ever dare to build something this bold again? And if you love stories about forgotten machines and lost legends, hit subscribe and join me as we rediscover the forgotten icons hidden beneath the dust of time.